Stone weeps in the antechamber of Hive Primus Courthouse Tertius. Industrial cleansers pool in worn grooves, their chemical bite mixing with sanctified oils, and the metallic tang that no amount of scrubbing ever removes. Incense hangs thick as industrial fog, unable to mask what lies beneath, the persistent institutional memory of old blood oxidized into policy. A bailiff serf hunches beneath the gilt aquila, stylus scratching tally marks into parchment already crowded with previous counts. 47 processed today. Quota requires 53 by shift's end. Servo skulls drift through the haze, their mechanical eyes cataloguing evidence and recording defendant biometrics with factory precision. Each skull bears the aquila etched into yellowed bone, death pressed into service, watching over those who will soon follow. Defendants shuffle past in regulation chains, ankle shackles creating percussion against stone. A manufactorum worker clutches a sant medallion, a scribe mutters catechisms, a former guardsman stares at nothing, recognizing preparation for slaughter. They all smell the same thing, the scent of certainty in a civilization that has forgotten the difference between law and execution. This is the fundamental truth of imperial justice. Courts do not decide guilt, they process it. Law functions as throughput, converting disorder into usable fear and exploitable bodies. Every verdict feeds a larger machine whose appetite never diminishes. The Lex Imperialis provides scripture and schedule in one binding. Arbitrator tribunals enforce doctrine through siegecraft, their precinct fortresses sharing courthouse walls, because jurisprudence here is warfare by other means. Planetary enforcement queues, paperwork with heads bowed, while above all looms the shadow of inquisitorial oversight, rosettes that can unmake any script and call the result justice. The architecture confirms this thesis. Benches bolted for crowd control, not comfort. Witness boxes facing firing lines as much as the dais. Murder slits for windows. Justice and execution share infrastructure by design, not accident. Two devices explain the system's deeper mechanics. On the judge's lectern sits a leather-bound ledger marked Compliance Quota. Today's numbers written in red ink, cross-referenced to munitorum requisitions. The pages smell of tallow and cold iron. Above the chamber doors, a cracked amber lamp reads Terminus Protocol in high Gothic script. Cable braids feed it, disappearing into wall conduits that split toward courthouse vox systems and mechanisms beneath the tiles. The bailiff serf makes another mark. 48 processed, 5 remain. The amber lamp glows steady, waiting. Why does the smell persist? Because the machinery never stops. It only shifts tempo. Trials are pauses between conversions. The stain here is procedural, embedded in stone and steel through centuries of systematic processing. Chemical cleansers cannot wash away institutional design. We will map the code that authorizes this conversion, beginning with the Lex Imperialis, scripture, tariff, and execution schedule masquerading as imperial virtue. The Lex Imperialis exists as liturgy bound to a requisition form. Across 1,000,000 worlds, the same clauses are recited in different tongues, each line fixing citizens to the throne through sacred mathematics. This is law as logistics, scripture and supply chain unified under the Aquila's shadow. 3 immutable pillars define imperial order, deviation from any constituting criminal heresy. Productive output demands every citizen contribute measurable value to the war economy. Man-hours, manufactured goods, extracted resources flowing upward through administrative channels. Doctrinal compliance requires absolute adherence to the imperial creed, with theological purity monitored through regular confession and behavioral assessment. Resource extraction authorizes systematic tithe of all material and human assets, treating populations as renewable commodities, subject to harvest quotas. Judges function as priest bureaucrats beneath cogitator banks and gilt aquilae, their sentences serving as invoices addressed to the war economy. Each verdict carries line items: biomass yield, servitor hulls, penal legion recruits, then disappears into administratum stacks, like offerings fed to a machine's throat. The courtroom becomes a grim dispatch office where human destinies are processed according to supply requirements, rather than moral consideration. 4 standardized judgment tiers optimize this conversion process. Censure applies calibrated corporal punishment with productivity monitoring, shock branding, and surveillance bands that report output to precinct cogitators. Redemption labor assigns indentured service in mines, manufactorums, or frontline trenches where wages are replaced by penance tallies payable only through exhaustion. Servitorization performs surgical erasure of the self, grafting the remainder to engines and data jacks as loyal machinery incapable of rebellion. Terminal compliance provides execution with resource reclamation. Organs harvested, fat rendered for lubricants, bone milled into sanctified cleanser ash. The mechanism aligning sermons with supply is the vox sentencer. Sanctified cogitators that cross-reference offense codes with live munitorum requisitions and planetary tithe deficits. When frontline casualties spike, charges that once drew censure climb to redemption labor. Servitor manufacturing shortfalls prompt increased lobotomization verdicts. Sector directives specify conversion targets in sterile percentages, transform 2.5% of minor infractions to servitorization when audit cycles demand statistical compliance. Here the contradiction stops pretending. The Lex Imperialis preaches justice as divine order, mercy as strength through submission. Practice demands bodies. Quotas are written in red ink because they must flow like blood. When dockets run light, patrols broaden the definition of offense. When audits loom, sentences harden automatically. Judges receive efficiency ratings based on throughput rather than fairness, earning compliance credits for exceeding conversion targets. Administrative oversight prevents local mercy through proctor major audits that flag leniency as deficit. Interdict writs authorize immediate seizure of wayward benches. Judges swear oaths before relics and cogitators that report deviations without passion or preference. The system's genius lies in presenting necessity as virtue. Citizens believe they face justice when encountering industrial conversion. But parchment requires enforcement. At dawn, the Adeptus Arbites transforms legal theory into physical reality, their shock moles converting imperial doctrine into imperial order through carefully applied violence. Dawn at Arbitrator Precinct Fortress. Mordian 7 begins with the hiss of Resic water through corroded pipes and the mechanical dispensing of protein paste. Bailiff serfs consume their rations standing, while below in Processing Bay 7, the chain line assembles. Ankle shackles create rhythmic percussion against stone worn smooth by decades of processing. This is the tempo that governs all courthouse operations, not the rhythm of justice, but of industrial conversion. The compliance board illuminates above the main entrance, amber numerics casting harsh shadows across defendant faces. Today's requirements: 150 labor assignments, 20 servitorizations, 8 terminal sentences. Yesterday's shortfall glows in accusatory red: labor deficit 8, servitorization deficit 2, terminal deficit 2. The mathematics are immutable. Bodies must flow to balance the ledgers. 3 defendants exemplify the morning's statistical requirements. Manufactorum worker Cale Voss, designation 7749-Kappa, bears the gaunt frame of extended shifts without adequate nutrition. His charge: insufficient zeal, following a 0.3% production shortfall during third shift power failures. He clutches a Saint Medallion, worn smooth by desperate fingers, whispering the machinist's apologia as though prayer might alter predetermined mathematics. Scribe Elara Vex, accused of doctrinal laxity, committed the cardinal sin of filing imperial tithe records under incorrect classification codes. Her error delayed Munitorum shipments by 6 hours, a clerical mistake that constitutes heretical negligence in the administratum's rigid taxonomy. She mutters guild prayers through grey lips, offering 3 ration chits to a bailiff serf who pockets them without altering her assigned fate. Former guardsman Jorik Thale faces dereliction of sacred duty through the crime of survival. When Cadian 47th was consumed by tyrannid swarms on Mordian Prime, he alone returned from a company of 200. His survival threatens morale through witness testimony to defeat. The mathematics are elegant. Terminal compliance cleanses doubt through blood. These defendants employ pathetic coping rituals because they cannot comprehend the system's true function. Saint Medallions are rubbed raw, guild prayers recited like protective charms, ecclesiarchy indulgence, tokens purchased from chapel vendors, believing salvation can be bought. The compliance board remains indifferent. Outcomes were determined before arrest. Labor assignment feeds recruitment quotas. Servitorization supplies manufacturing demands. Terminal compliance satisfies statistical requirements. Tech Adept Mortis 7 performs morning maintenance on courtroom infrastructure. Collapsible gallows nested within wall panels receive lubricant and tension calibration. Execution machinery shares architecture with legal proceedings by design. The same chambers serve both functions without modification. His mechadendrite appendages test drop mechanisms, while defendants wait outside, unaware their processing facility doubles as termination equipment. Above the chamber doors, the terminus protocol lamp flickers amber. Distant alarms sound from Hive Tertius, civil unrest following food riots. The lamp's connection to both courthouse security and execution systems becomes apparent as Mortis 7 checks cable feeds. Emergency protocols can convert legal proceedings to mass termination without architectural modification. Evidence will be heard because ritual requires it, but verdicts migrate to meet requisition. The day's appetite is declared on the wall, and every file becomes a supply manifest. To understand how benches accommodate firing positions and judgments earn compliance credits, we must examine the Adeptus Arbites, warriors who transform legal theory into physical reality through systematically applied violence. Arbitrator doctrine begins from a tactical theorem. Order is a supply line, and anything threatening tithe flow constitutes an enemy position requiring reduction. The Codex Arbitratus defines law enforcement as siege warfare: fix resistance, isolate threats, break morale, exploit surrender. Mercy receives evaluation as tactical weakness rather than virtue. The objective remains restoration of throughput to administratum ledgers, not reconciliation with imperial subjects. Architecture follows operational doctrine. Precinct fortresses double as courthouses because arbitrators view legal proceedings as potential battlefields. Murder holes overlook assembly floors through decorative aquilae. Ballistic shutters seal galleries in seconds, converting public seating into detention pens. The judge's dais functions as elevated redoubt with integrated auspex arrays and vox control. Beneath defendant platforms, kill chutes descend toward secured processing bays, where suppression teams maintain readiness. Corridors employ dogleg construction to break assault charges, blast doors, vent promethium curtains during defensive protocols. Equipment calibrates to Imperial pain compliance standards. Shock mauls deliver graded neural disruption, sufficient to break resistance while preserving bodies for labor sentences. Suppression shields interlock to form mobile barriers, their ceramite edges ribbed to catch and wrench limbs during crowd control. Combat shotguns cycle between pacification rounds and man-stoppers depending on demonstration requirements. Auspex arrays map crowd density, while vox-hailers broadcast pre-approved liturgies tuned to induce psychological submission. Demonstrative sentencing operates as codified protocol rather than judicial discretion. Judge-arbitrator Thane exemplifies this doctrine during Hive Tertius grain riots, when thousand-strong crowds gathered after tithe recalculation halved rations. Thane established cordon using 3 shield lines and deployed loudhailers, broadcasting the creed of endurance. Stone impacts against shields triggered Protocol Black 3. Extract 12 agitators, every 100th citizen plus the loudest voice, issue summary judgments for subversion of tithe priority. Then perform terminal compliance on depot steps. Bolt pistol reports echoed down avenues like drumfire. Crowds broke within minutes. Ration distribution resumed. Thane's after-action report recorded the doctrinal axiom: mercy invites maneuver. Weakness is tactical liability. Economics underwrite this conversion of jurisprudence into resource management. Precincts receive compliance credits when exceeding quota targets through efficient body routing. Labor-eligible convicts to penal legions earn 2 credits. Servitor conversion yields 4 credits. Terminal processing with full resource reclamation generates 6 credits. Credits convert to requisition privileges, improved transports, enhanced weaponry, expanded operational authority. Administratum auditors tie credit accumulation to quarterly production curves, rewarding benches that transform unrest into outputs. This system incentivizes human trafficking, sanctified through imperial doctrine. Definitions of agitation expand near audit dates. Sentences harden when servitor inventories decline. Leniency becomes loss when measured against credit potential. Judge-arbitrator Thane accumulated 43 credits during grain riot suppression, earning commendation for innovative resource optimization. When law operates as siegecraft, populations adapt like besieged garrisons. Citizens develop survival economies, trading liturgical phrases, purchasing indulgences, bribing clerks, offering substitutions to satisfy state appetite. We examine next this shadow market that flowers in courthouse shadows. Where death operates as industrial policy, life becomes commodity. Around Precinct Fortress, Mordian 7, blooms a shadow economy trading in survival. Prayers sold by the phrase, flesh offered by the pound, hope dispensed through blessed tokens that glitter like fool's gold in desperate hands. Scribal advocates cluster in courthouse antechambers, their palms black with ink, hawking correct liturgical responses for specific charges. Former clerks dismissed for minor infractions now sell institutional knowledge, the precise genuflection required during insufficient zeal arraignment, the approved contrition formulas for doctrinal laxity, the exact phrasing that transforms terminal compliance to redemption labor. Their rates fluctuate with desperation, 2 ration chits for misdemeanor responses, 8 for capital charges. They whisper their wares like seditionists, the litany of productive repentance, verse 7. Memorize the emphasis patterns. Enforcer Sergeant Vex operates more direct commerce behind the courthouse. He accepts voluntary enlistment contracts in penal legions as alternative to execution, reading from fixed scripts that frame service as virtue. The mathematics remain grim. Penal legions suffer 93% casualty rates within 6 months, but families mortgage decades of labor to purchase their condemned relatives' transformation from corpse to expendable soldier. Vex maintains waiting lists, collecting names rather than bribes, his precinct earning double compliance credits for bodies routed to frontline service. Ecclesiarchy Cleric Mordian distributes indulgence tokens from a chapel booth, each blessed parchment claiming spiritual protection during trial proceedings. The tokens bear authentic seals and liturgical text, their perceived power, derived from desperate faith rather than actual efficacy. Scribe Elara Vex trades her remaining ration chits for token 4471 Blessed, clutching the stamped metal disc like armor against the compliance board's mathematics. She memorizes its prayer while chains rattle outside. Hope requires no warranty, only purchase price. Substitution protocols represent the economy's cruelest efficiency. Families offer sick or elderly relatives to labor gangs, purchasing productive members' freedom through flesh tithe. Grandmothers volunteer for servitorization to spare young fathers. Terminally ill uncles accept terminal compliance to preserve healthy nephews. Administratum clerks process these exchanges without moral consideration through voluntary compliance transfers. Bodies are bodies, quotas are quotas. The Mechanicus contributes through maintenance contracts that create economic incentives for regular execution machinery use. Tech Adept Mortis Seven's Guild receives payment scaled to throughput. Gallows require lubrication. Incinerators need carbon scraping. Bolt pistols demand cleaning after demonstration. Each maintenance cycle generates revenue, transforming judicial murder into steady commerce. The chemical signature binding this economy emerges in courthouse sanitation. Sanctified cleanser used to scrub stone contains processed ash from irreclaimable convicts, those whose bodies yielded insufficient value for standard resource reclamation. The dead literally clean up after their replacements, ground into industrial solvent that pools in worn grooves between trials. Maintenance Serf Eula recognizes the sweet, organic tang mixing with chemical astringents, breathing her son's remains while mopping defendant blood. Where survival requires ritual compliance, faith transforms into currency. The ecclesiarchy waits to sanctify this commerce through liturgy, converting desperation into devotion. Every imperial courthouse contains a chapel positioned where defendants must witness the emperor's mercy before facing his justice. In Precinct Fortress Mordian 7, redemptionist priest Calvus transforms administrative processing into sacred theatre, his liturgies converting quota fulfillment into divine mandate. The chapel occupies prime architectural space. Defendants cannot approach judgment without passing beneath devotional artwork that teaches submission through pigment and gold leaf. Confessionals line the defendant docks like armored ammunition caches, their iron mesh booths hard bolted to stone and wired to courthouse vox systems. Here, final admissions are extracted through theological pressure rather than physical coercion. Servo skulls record every whispered confession, building cases from desperation rather than evidence. The booths reek of fear sweat and recycled air, their grilled windows offering no sanctuary from the Emperor's all-seeing judgment. The stations of the righteous judge sanctify the conversion process through 14 devotional scenes lining courtroom walls. Station 7 depicts a manufactorum worker accepting redemption labor with grateful tears, chains transformed into holy bonds. Station 11 shows terminal compliance as ascension, the condemned rising toward golden light while earthly burdens fall away. Each station bears inscribed prayers equating obedience with salvation, teaching defendants to embrace their processing as divine gift rather than institutional murder. During sentencing, Priest Calvus chants the litany of just punishment, transforming legal penalties into religious penances. As Judge-Arbitrator Thane announces verdicts, liturgical responses reframe administrative decisions as spiritual sacraments through labor, redemption, through service, salvation, through ending eternal peace. The congregation, bailiff serfs, court clerks, witnesses, provides ritual responses that mask the mechanical quota fulfillment occurring beneath theological veneer. Scribe Ilara Vex receives demonstration of this theological alchemy. Her worthless indulgence token crumbles between desperate fingers as tech adepts fit the penitent's harness, neural feedback collar, linked to productivity monitors. Priest Calvus blesses the device as instrument of divine guidance, while choir voices rise in the canticle of willing bondage, their harmonies masking her protests and the harness's activation whine. She joins the processed, theology-converting terror into compliance. Critical infrastructure reveals itself during ceremony. Priest Calvus approaches Judge-Arbitrator Thane, carrying an ornate reliquary sealed with ecclesiarchy stamps. From within, he extracts a brass key marked Terminus Authorization in high Gothic script. Thane accepts the blessed metal without ceremony, suggesting pre-planned escalation protocols rather than emergency response. The key's teeth match hidden locks beneath his lectern. Terminus protocol operates on schedule, not crisis. The omnipresent smell intensifies as machinery warms throughout the complex. Incense struggles against cordite residue, and the chemical tang of lubricants heating in execution mechanisms. Through chapel windows, alarms multiply across Hive Tertius, where civil unrest spreads beyond containment. The Terminus protocol lamp glows steady amber above chamber doors, cable feeds humming with increased power flow. When theology meets rebellion, the courthouse remembers its deeper function. The amber lamp awaits a single key's turn to transform ritual into logistics, revealing the court's other name. The key turns, Judge-Arbitrator Thane inserts blessed brass into the hidden lock beneath his lectern, and Precinct Fortress Mordian 7 transforms from courthouse to processing plant in 17 seconds of choreographed conversion. Blast doors slam with ceramite finality, sealing the chamber from Hive Tertius riots. The Terminus Protocol lamp shifts from amber to red, casting bloody illumination across defendant faces as understanding dawns. Vox casters crackle with mechanical precision. Courthouse lockdown initiated. All present designated potential agitators pending compliance verification. Resistance constitutes confession. Wall shutters retract with grinding servos, revealing the courthouse's deeper architecture. Devotional artwork splits apart, the Emperor's golden visage opening like mechanical petals to expose integrated auto-gallows and firing positions. Tech Adept Mortis 7's morning maintenance becomes operational deployment as execution machinery rises to full readiness. Collapsible gallows unfold from chapel walls with industrial rhythm. Bolt pistols cycle in automated clamps, incinerators warm to operational temperature. The chapel choir pivots mid-hymn into the Canticle of Final Judgment, sacred harmonies designed to mask screams and gunfire. Priest Calvus raises his Crozius as liturgical comfort transforms into acoustic camouflage for systematic murder. Cross-cutting reveals the mechanism's components. Chained defendants comprehend their fate through architectural revelation. Manufactorum worker Cale Voss clutches his Saint Medallion as noose mechanisms descend. Former guardsman Yorick Thale recognizes firing squad formation through combat experience. Scribe Elara Vex presses her worthless indulgence token against the penitent's harness like pathetic armor. Outside, rioters batter ceramite barriers, while arbitrator suppression teams deploy chemical weapons. Through reinforced windows, crowds surge against courthouse walls, unaware of the transformation occurring within defensive screens. Data displays flicker with inquisitorial seals, the triple-barred eye authorizing suspension of local discretion. Higher authority invokes Emergency Provision 12, converting judicial proceedings to resource optimization under Ordo mandate. Courthouse staff transform from legal officers to processing technicians through administrative fiat. Gas vents open in public galleries, releasing sedative compounds that drop witnesses into compliance stupor. Servo skulls record everything for administratum archives, while bailiff serfs seal case files, converting interrupted trials to closed administrative actions. Mass sentencing commences with liturgical efficiency. By Lex Imperialis, Emergency Provision 12, compliance credits authorized for expedited processing. The compliance board numerics tick toward target as bodies convert to statistics. Cale Voss receives servitorization. Tech adepts drag his struggling form toward lobotomization chambers, while neural inhibitors silence protests. His Saint Medallion joins personal effects slated for reclamation, faith-filed as recyclable material. Yorick Thale faces firing squad for instructional purposes, his execution broadcast through courthouse Vox systems as demonstration. Judge Arbitrator Thane raises a bolt pistol, speaking to recording servo skulls. Dereliction begets contagion. One report echoes through stone. The body strikes floor drains with punctuation finality, shock links snapping taut as it tips the grate. Elara Vex watches Priest Calvus burn her indulgence token with ceremonial flame. Invalid under terminus conditions, he intones, blessed parchment curling into ash that joins sanctified cleanser pools. Her penitent's harness activates, neural feedback converting terror into paralysis as redemption labor processing begins. Blood flows toward floor drains, leading to resource reclamation chambers below. Grills breathe in copper, carrying it to consecrated machinery, where starred sigils warn of systematic conversion. Sluices rattle to life, pumps take their tithe. The smell reaches crescendo, incense layered over cordite, copper oxidation, mixing with industrial solvents, organic compounds, heating in processing machinery. Outside, riot suppression succeeds through demonstration. Crowds witness courthouse transformation, understanding that resistance invites systematic conversion. The uprising subsides into sullen compliance as applied fear restores order. When the last docket closes, smoke hangs under vaults like industrial fog. Precinct Fortress Mordian 7 stands wreathed in silence, its dual function revealed through operational necessity. The Terminus Protocol lamp glows steady red, illuminating empty defendant docks and blood-slick stone where compliance has been restored through conversion of disorder into usable resources. Dawn maintenance begins with Tech Adept Mortis, 7 hosing defendant blood from floor drains, while servo skulls compile operational metrics. His requisition logs expose Terminus Protocol's systematic nature. Prescheduled conversion, synchronized with civil unrest projections and quarterly resource quotas. Emergency response operates on administrative calendar rather than crisis, its activation triggered by bureaucratic necessity, disguised as spontaneous reaction to disorder. Post-terminus review reveals dual accounting beneath theological veneer. The compliance credits ledger records each terminal sentence twice. Once as deterrence event with projected morale effects across 7 hab blocks, again as material yield quantified in kilograms of recoverable protein, liters of renderable fat, and organ sets suitable for transplantation. Judge Arbitrator Thane's efficiency rating climbs through mathematical optimization of human throughput. 43 redemption labor assignments, 18 servitorizations, 12 terminal compliance executions, generating measurable outputs for both fear generation and supply chain requirements. Beneath courthouse floors, resource reclamation chambers operate as integrated industrial conversion plants. Bone mills reduce skeletal remains into calcium phosphate for ceramite strengthening agents, their auger screws carrying powdered death to vats, where it binds solvents into sanctified cleanser. Organ harvesting bays maintain cold storage, with cogitators matching compatibility indices to waiting lists stamped with munitorum sigils. Chemical processing units render adipose tissue into lubricants and soaps while extracting proteins for ration supplementation, their sweet vapors rising through ventilation chutes to mingle with courtroom incense. Equipment turnaround demonstrates systematic efficiency. Scribe Elara Vex's penitent's harness receives cleaning and neural recalibration within 4 hours, servo skulls preparing the feedback collar for the next labor assignment. Her family receives standardized administratum notification. Citizen Vex successfully rehabilitated through productive service. Gratitude to the Emperor for his mercy. The form bears authentic seals while concealing systematic conversion of their daughter into monitored industrial asset. Architectural analysis completes the reframe. Courthouses are constructed directly above processing facilities to minimize transport costs and maximize conversion efficiency. Gravity chutes deliver materials from floor drains to processing stations below without external handling. Justice literally sits atop death by design. The persistent institutional smell emerges from integrated infrastructure rather than contamination. Incense unable to mask what rises continuously from machinery, that processes yesterday's condemned while today's defendants await their turn above. Maintenance schedules confirm systematic rather than spontaneous operation. Tech-adept requisitions for execution machinery lubricants spike precisely 14 days before administratum audit dates. Gallows. Stress testing occurs during predictable civil unrest windows. Incinerator carbon removal aligns with projected throughput based on seasonal tithe collection pressures. Terminus protocol operates on schedule, not emergency, its crisis response nature serving as administrative cover for routine resource optimization. Fresh targets illuminate the compliance board as new defendants shuffle into processing positions. Today's requirements: 140 labor assignments, 22 servitorizations, 10 terminal sentences. The mathematics remain immutable, adjusted only for yesterday's surplus applied against quarterly deficits. Courthouse staff resume legal theater while processing machinery cycles through cleaning phases below, preparing for another day's conversion of disorder into usable resources. The question shifts from whether terminus protocol constitutes emergency response to who schedules these emergencies and authorizes conversion of legal facilities into death plants with such administrative precision. An inquisitorial rosette transforms jurisprudence into suggestion. The three-barred I pressed against courthouse seals dissolves procedure, converts judges to auxiliaries, and authorizes immediate conversion of legal facilities into purification centers. Under its authority, courts become either occupied theater or bypassed obstacles. The ordos stand above the lex imperialis through divine mandate rather than administrative hierarchy. Rosettes authorize seizure of legal facilities, retroactive justification of any action, and immediate purification of entire populations deemed statistically dangerous. Clerks sign non-disclosure catechisms, while judges surrender benches as liturgical rite. Arbitrators become sacred implements, their shock mauls reclassified as instruments of divine will rather than law enforcement tools. Case study demonstrates systematic application. 3 days after Terminus Protocol activation, Ordo Hereticus declares silent corruption in Hive Tertius, nascent cult activity, detected through Psi-scanner sweeps. Judge Arbitrator Thane receives writ of absolute necessity, his authority suspended by higher imperial mandate. The courthouse undergoes rapid conversion from legal facility to inquisitorial processing center. Standard evacuation protocols clear galleries and defendant docks within minutes. Records from recent terminus operations are transferred to sealed data caskets, their timestamps altered to show routine processing rather than emergency conversion. The facility is then restocked with pre-condemned subjects, citizens extracted from under-hive sweeps, their crimes unstated, their fates predetermined by cult purge requirements rather than legal evidence. Judgment protocols are overridden entirely. Vox sentences disconnect from munitorum requisitions to prevent audit trails linking inquisitorial operations to standard quota systems. Confessor priests sanctify the absence of due process through emergency liturgies, chanting the litany against concealment while thuribles swing over mass sentencing procedures. Each execution becomes reliquary conversion, death sanctified through theological necessity rather than a legal verdict. Citizens observing cannot distinguish between legitimate trials and inquisitorial theater. The same wall shutters retract, revealing identical auto-gallows. The same gas vents release sedative compounds. The same resource reclamation chambers process bodies through bone mills and organ harvesting bays. The smell remains identical. Incense layered over cordite, sanctified oils masking copper oxidation, because the machinery is identical, regardless of authorization source. Records receive post-operational correction to shape public memory. Arrest logs are overwritten, showing routine processing, docket numbers renumbered, compliance credits assigned retroactively, so precinct ledgers balance without discrepancy. Local discretion is erased while economic flows continue. Bodies route to penal legions under redeemed through service classifications. Servitor manufactories receive lobotomization candidates. Terminal yields are tallied in kilograms rather than names. The moral cost accumulates systematically. When law becomes optional for the righteous, it becomes meaningless for everyone else. Defendants learn that innocence describes administrative status rather than actual condition. Witnesses understand that participation equals attendance. The courthouse maintains its institutional smell because the conversion machinery operates regardless of theological justification. Departamento Munitorum ledgers translate courthouse verdicts into shipments with industrial precision. Penal legion recruitment quotas, servitor manufacturing contracts, and terminal resource processing flow through legal channels like tributaries feeding a vast mechanical river. Every docket closed in Precinct Fortress Mordian 7 becomes a line item moving along cargo rails toward wars without names or endings. Manufactorum Worker Kale Voss, designation 7749-Kappa, follows the sanctioned path from sentence to service. Shackled in chain gangs, he receives a cranial code plate linking directly to Courthouse Ledger Page 311 Beta, ensuring his conversion satisfies both local compliance credits and distant military requisitions. The lobotomization facility processes him as inventory. Tech adepts in rust-stained masks recite the rite of severance, while surgical drills excise the portions of his brain capable of refusal. Data jacks fit like sacramental rings. Combat protocols fill neural gaps where consent once lived. His transformation generates measurable outputs across multiple administrative categories. Compliance credits reward the courthouse for efficient processing, while Munitorum contracts receive one Pattern Delta gun servitor, chassis-mounted and combat-ready. When transport convoys depart, Voss accompanies drums of sanctified lubricant and ration crates that contain processed remains of previous conversions, the flesh economy consuming and recycling itself through systematic logistics. On distant battlefields, he operates through hard-wired stimulus response patterns, tracking targets by Auspex input, while his vestigial nervous system receives dopamine rewards for maintaining optimal firing rates. The ledger entry follows him. Compliance claim 47 Omicron, Bolt class expenditure, offset by servitor output. War economy mathematics balanced through dead men still moving. Administratum auditors arrive quarterly with data slates humming requisition projections, their parchment-scented robes spread across Judge-Arbitrator Thane's dais, comparing courthouse outputs to sector requirements. Deficits glow accusatory red, demanding correction through increased throughput. Staff respond with practiced efficiency. Patrols sweep habstacks for vagrants, debtors, and the insufficiently compliant. Charges undergo statistical adjustment to meet conversion requirements. Petty theft becomes tithe interference, Missed shifts transform into sabotage by omission. Loitering near shrines constitutes micro-heresy. Clerks manipulate charge classifications with devotional precision, massaging offense categories until statistical curves align with requisition graphs. The Vox sentencer recalibrates automatically, its cogitators cross-referencing updated parameters with munitorum needs. Conversion ratios tick upward on the compliance board until mathematical harmony emerges between local processing and military demand. The systematic revelation crystallizes. Compliance quotas were never crime prevention, but resource forecasting. Courts exist to stabilize fear, while feeding the war machine's insatiable appetite for human material. When servitor inventories decline, more infractions become lobotomizable. When penal legions require fodder, voluntary enlistment becomes alternative to execution. When terminal resource stocks demand replenishment, public infractions harden into capital offenses through administrative decree. The contradiction deepens with each audit cycle. Innocence becomes liability when quotas demand guilt. Clean dockets represent missed opportunities for resource generation. Citizens learn that safety lies not in lawful behavior, but in useful conversion. Better to volunteer for redemption labor than await involuntary processing during statistical adjustment periods. At the front lines, military justice applies identical logic with fewer bureaucratic layers, converting legal theory into immediate action through commissarial authority and battlefield necessity. Military justice operates as courthouse logic stripped to battlefield essentials. Commissars apply the lex imperialis at combat speed, observation, judgment, execution, morale restored within minutes rather than months. Their bolt pistols deliver verdicts without appeal, while their authority derives from the same imperial doctrine that governs civilian tribunals compressed into immediate action through wartime necessity. A trench vignette illustrates the mathematics. Section Delta breaks under tyrannid artillery, 2 troopers stumbling rearward as chittering death approaches the wire. Commissar Volk observes, selects a single body to speak for the unit, and delivers judgment through bolt round. The platoon steadies within 90 seconds. Vox officer records rise in cohesion index from 41 to 63. 1 death purchasing 99 continued advances. Munitorum doctrine quotes probabilities instead of parables. Execute 1 in n to reduce desertions by m% for t hours. The calculus requires neither confession nor evidence, only a public vector for fear. Statistical guilt doctrine governs both battlefield and courthouse through identical mathematics. Civilian courts absorb this calculation through extended procedures. Judges sentence to influence populations rather than address individual crimes. When Hive Tertius productivity curves decline, theft becomes tithe interference. When riot models trend upward, brawls transform into incipient sedition. The Vox sentencer recommends outcomes optimizing compliance metrics across habitation blocks, weighting audiences over individuals. Evidence emerges in battlefield salvage, revealing the system's moral inversions. Among fallen guardsmen, Kaney's personal effects lies a charred parchment fragment bearing familiar markings. Scribe Ilara Vex's indulgence token, burned as invalid under terminus conditions, yet somehow traveling from courthouse chapel to frontline trench. Kaney traded precious water rations for its ash-stained metal core, believing blessed remnants provided protection where imperial justice failed. The token found value through desperate faith rather than institutional authority. Worthless in court, priceless in foxholes where hope becomes black market currency. Administrative feedback flows backward from battlefield to courthouse through efficiency metrics. Judge-arbitrator Thane receives formal reprimand for excessive deliberation during Terminus Protocol. His 19-second conversion time exceeded optimal throughput by 4 seconds. Munitorum data burst specifies, evidence consideration threatens quota fulfillment. Recommend streamlined processing for future activations. Legal deliberation becomes liability when speed determines statistical success. Citizens internalize these lessons through institutional osmosis. Courthouse observers learn that legal outcomes track administrative needs rather than actual guilt or innocence. When penal legion recruitment spikes, minor infractions harden into military service. When servitor quotas demand fulfillment, petty crimes become lobotomization candidates. Safety resides in usefulness, invisibility, or possessing the right tokens at the right moment. Everything else constitutes exposure to systematic conversion. The spiritual cost accumulates in courthouse pews, where witnesses observe justice as theater. Scripts are written by spreadsheets rather than moral consideration. Defendants memorize liturgical responses, not because they ensure fairness, but because they satisfy procedural requirements, while conversion machinery warms beneath stone floors. Law becomes statistical performance, where actors follow roles dictated by quotas rather than conscience. Commissars and judges serve identical functions through different timeframes, converting disorder into compliance through calibrated fear. Battlefield executions provide immediate morale adjustment, while courthouse processing offers sustained population control. Both systems measure success through mathematical outcomes, their shared infrastructure revealing law's true nature as logistics disguised as virtue. Night maintenance begins as courthouse staff prepare tomorrow's processing. Their routines mirror battlefield cleanup, hosing blood from drains, cataloging remains, feeding machinery the oils and ashes required for continued operation. To understand why empty courts smell like execution grounds, we must follow these technicians beneath the dais to examine the works that never sleep. After the last docket closes and galleries empty, Precinct Fortress Mordian 7 reveals its deeper mechanical truths. Sanitation crews emerge from service tunnels, carrying industrial sprayers filled with sanctified cleanser. Their respirator masks necessary protection against the chemical vapors that rise from stone, worn smooth by centuries of systematic processing. The cleanser itself confirms the system's recursive nature through chemical analysis. Spectral readings reveal calcium phosphate derived from processed bone, organic proteins extracted during resource reclamation, and blessed oils sanctified through ecclesiarchy ritual. The dead literally clean up after their replacements, ground into solvent that pools in worn grooves, while tomorrow's defendants await processing above. Tech Adept Mortis 7 conducts systematic maintenance on execution machinery integrated throughout courthouse architecture. His mechadendrites test gallows tension, lubricate drop mechanisms, and calibrate auto-bolt systems for optimal efficiency. Servitors, lobotomized remnants of previous transgressors, scrape carbon deposits from incinerator grates with bone scrapers that ring against refractory brick like funeral bells. Each component bears maintenance tags linking it to administratum requisitions, death as infrastructure requiring regular upkeep. Maintenance serf Eula has breathed courthouse air for 37 years, since her son received redemption labor assignment for insufficient devotion during morning prayers. She identifies the omnipresent smell through bitter expertise, finger-touching nose as she recites, incense resin from chapel thuribles, promethium exhaust from incinerators running below optimal efficiency, copper oxidation from blood pooling in poorly drained areas, recycled solvents heated by accumulated body warmth, and the sweet organic compounds, that's protein reclamation systems, processing adipose tissue into industrial feedstock. Architectural schematics spread under lumen strips reveal the building's true function through infrastructure design. Gravity chutes beneath judge platforms deliver materials directly to resource reclamation chambers without external handling. Processing pipelines connect courtroom drains to bone mills and chemical conversion units through sealed conduits. Chapel ventilation systems circulate incense downward rather than upward, masking rather than cleansing the institutional processes occurring throughout the complex. The Terminus Protocol lamp's wiring exposes the system's deepest integration. Cable analysis reveals primary feeds linking courthouse security directly to execution machinery. Blast door controls, gas vent activation, auto gallows deployment, and incinerator ignition sequences operate through unified command protocols. The lamp cannot activate without both systems achieving operational readiness, confirming systematic rather than emergency deployment. Eula pauses her cleaning routine, touching a worn Sant medallion to stone stained despite chemical treatment. The smell fills her lungs, not contamination, but institutional memory embedded in stone and steel through centuries of systematic processing. Oils seep into microfractures, soot patinas vaults, ash lodges in mortar. Architecture remembers what liturgy forgets. Courts are execution grounds by design. Imperial justice promises virtue while demanding throughput, preaches mercy while enforcing quotas, fears heresy while manufacturing fear itself. The system's contradictions resolve into operational efficiency. Courts are execution facilities by design, not deterioration. Architecture, economics, and theology unite in systematic conversion of human disorder into war economy resources. The narrative loops close through accumulated evidence. Compliance quotas stabilize resource flows by forecasting rather than preventing crime, their red ink matching requisition schedules. Terminus Protocol operates on administrative calendars masked as emergencies, its amber lamp wired to security systems, and execution machinery in unified command protocols. Sanctified Cleanser literally contains processed ash from previous defendants, the dead cleaning up after their replacements through chemical recursion. Indulgence tokens provide psychological comfort, but no legal protection. Blessed parchment cannot override statistical requirements for guilt. The persistent smell serves as policy, deterrent, catechism, and logistical signature combined. Incense layers over cordite. Copper oxidation mixes with sanctified oils, while sweet organic compounds rise from protein reclamation systems. This institutional memory, embedded in stone, teaches compliance through olfactory doctrine, each breath confirming the machinery's continuous operation. From this understanding emerges the creed of compliance, citizen survival rules for navigating inevitable processing. Enter with proper posture, genuflect precisely, eyes on Aquila rather than judge, hands visible and still. Speak liturgical responses in prescribed cadences, quote the creed rather than personal testimony. Confess minor faults quickly to satisfy ritual requirements. Never volunteer names or associations. Trade for delays through extra shifts, donations, or voluntary enlistments. Request redemption labor over terminal compliance when statistical flexibility permits. Carry tokens only for psychological comfort. They will not alter ledger mathematics. Avoid public places when compliance boards show deficits. Recognize terminus protocol warnings, amber lamp flickering, tech adept maintenance during sessions, chapel choirs practicing funeral liturgies. When the lamp glows steady, immediate evacuation becomes survival imperative. The creed offers no guarantees. Statistics punish the isolated, quotas demand fulfillment, and machinery requires feeding. It exists because citizens forced to live by institutional rhythms must learn the steps or become lubricant. Safety resides in statistical invisibility, useful enough to preserve, invisible enough to survive. Maintenance, Serf Yulla completes her shift in the empty courthouse. She touches a worn Sant medallion to a bench stained despite chemical treatment, breathing deeply of air thick with institutional memory. The smell fills her lungs. Not justice, but the olfactory signature of a civilization that has forgotten the difference between law and slaughter. In the 41st millennium, courts smell like execution grounds, because they are execution grounds. The architecture remembers what liturgy obscures. Every verdict serves quotas rather than virtue. Every sentence feeds machinery rather than morality. The conversion never stops. It only changes tempo, cycling through dockets while deeper mechanisms continue their systematic processing beneath devotional veneer. What persists in stone and steel is certainty, the institutional memory of empire consuming itself to survive.